Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin.
I'm Londa Sherwood Austin. Welcome back.
I'm super happy to be here with you today because you're wearing one of the prettiest outfits that you own.
Okay, thank you.
That was a dress that you made into a beautiful blouse. I got to tell you, you never cease to amaze me with how crafty you can be.
I had someone do it. I didn't do it myself, but...
Is that true?
Well, I cut it and then I took it in and had someone hem it.
Wow, I had no idea that happened. I remember when it was a dress,
yes.
And you said you were going to make it a blouse.
Yes.
Interesting. So somebody did that for you.
Yeah, it's just a hem because I don't have a sewing machine anymore.
I gotcha. Like a business person who does business.
Yeah, I took it to a tailor.
Okay.
Seamstress.
Yeah.
Tailor.
You'd already cut it, though.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I got it.
I didn't know how any of that worked.
God, you are such a weirdo. Welcome to the show. It's weird already.
It's time for news. Israeli airstrikes continue in Gaza while an all-out ground assault seems to be on hold, at least for now. Hamas reportedly released 2 hostages Friday and another 2 Monday morning, while the start of the Israeli ground offensive there has been pushed back. Multiple news agencies report the delay was instigated by the U.S. as a way to negotiate for more hostages and to have a little more time to deliver what's being called humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. They've been without power and basic services for weeks now. Some 54 trucks carrying supplies have reportedly crossed the border into Gaza through Egypt's Rafah crossing since Friday of last week. The search for a new U.S. Speaker of the House continues on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, former president and frontrunner for the GOP presidential nomination, Donald Trump, says he isn't backing anyone this time around. Trump threw his support behind Jim Jordan last week, and Jordan failed to gain enough votes for the job Friday. Now, 9 new candidates have thrown their hats into the ring for the post. Jordan and Louisiana's Steve Scalise are not on that list of 9 representatives. An off-duty pilot faces 83 counts of attempted murder after allegedly trying to shut down the engines of a flight from Washington State to San Francisco Sunday. The FBI says Joseph Emerson, who was riding in the jump seat of an Alaska Airlines flight, was subdued prior to successfully downing the airline. Emerson was off-duty, but is reportedly a pilot for Alaska Airlines. The plane made an emergency landing in Portland to get Emerson off the plane that originated in Everett, Washington. I see your face. I thought the first thing, did that come from Pasco, Washington, where we live? No, it was in Everett. No injuries were reported from the crew or the passengers on board that plane. Scary time Sunday, though, over the skies of Washington and Oregon.
Wow.
Yeah, riding in the jump seat, off duty,
what in the world?
Having a conversation with the pilot and the co-pilot, then all of a sudden lurched allegedly toward the engine shutoff controls and had to be subdued. The audio from the pilot is classic. Attention, we're going to need to make an emergency landing. We had to subdue someone here in the jump seat. And, yeah, we'll be landing. Everything's fine. Have FBI on standby. I mean, it was crazy.
What the hell?
He sounded unflappable, that pilot.
We've had a little bit of a situation here in the cockpit of this Alaska Airlines flight.
I mean, like nothing was going on.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Did the passengers on board know what was going on?
I don't think so. Because he was in the cockpit, sitting in the jump seat.
What happened? Did he just snap?
They're not sure if there's some ongoing mental health issue. They're now looking into whether or not he has some ideological reason for doing this, but he faces 83 counts of attempted murder.
Because there were 83 souls on board.
I think that's true.
Okay.
And other charges, like impeding a flight. Bad stuff, bad. But the attempted murders, no laughing matter.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Let's not end this there.
All right.
Swelsey or Trailer has another great weekend. Taylor Swift was, in fact, on hand as the Kansas City Chiefs downed the Chargers Sunday 31-17. Swift received a little post-game shout-out from Coach Andy Reid, who says she's welcome at all of their games as they've now gone 4-4 with her in the stands.
Wow.
And that's what's happening.
Wow. I don't even know where to start with all that.
Can you believe a Washington flight bound for San Francisco was tumultuously attacked by a guy who's a pilot for that company?
I work with people, and so I can tell you, yes, I believe that, because there are crazy people everywhere.
Yeah. Well, if you have a bad day and your job is accounting, some numbers might get done wrong. You know what I
Right.
mean? If you have a bad day and you're a pilot and you're thinking, that's it, I'm done. Scary.
It's more than a bad day, though, right? Come on.
Oh, yeah.
That was more than a bad day.
We don't know what exactly was going through that guy's mind at the time. We just know Captain Unflappable saved the day.
Attention, Portland. We're going to need to make a little detour to your airline, to your airport, as we had a little tumult on the plane today.
I mean, it was just like that.
I wish we had the audio, because now you've got me so curious. I'm going to have to go and look at the audio. But
if I were the pilot, it'd be, oh my God.
Well, yes.
You know what I mean?
Because while that pilot, Captain Unflappable, you, Captain Dramatic.
That's correct, which
Yes.
is why I should not be in charge of 83 souls flying out of Everett, Washington.
Right. Terrifying, though.
Oh, awful. Yeah.
The more the longer I live, the less I want to fly anywhere.
Yeah. I've been saying that for years.
I know. I hate it.
I cannot stand it, which is why I get stoned out of my mind before we go. And here's how I say stoned out of my mind.
David
I take
Austin.
2 Dramamines and I drink liquor at the airport.
You get a little
So
crossfaded, I think.
I'm as relaxed as can be. It's like I'm sitting in my living room and I watch airplane disaster movies when I fly.
Yeah.
Because no amount of turbulence is as bad as Air Force One going into the Pacific.
I guess.
Or the Atlantic.
Yeah.
I guess it would be the Atlantic if they were coming here from Russia. I don't know.
I don't either. I had a few thoughts about some of your stories.
Okay.
The Israeli airstrikes continuing in Gaza.
Yeah.
I have, I think, rarely felt so far removed from something that's happening in the world.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
I just feel very removed. When there's a lot of, I don't know, this kind of thing going on, I tend to avoid the news.
Okay.
So that's what I've been doing. Not really tuning in to a lot of the news. Because I guess I just don't want to, don't come after me, people, but I just don't want to be influenced by the awful things happening in the world.
Sure.
I'm just not interested. Like I'm in the zone. I'm working. I'm doing my thing. I'm thinking about Christmas with my kids, with the grandkids. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm thinking about Thanksgiving and how we're going to do, and I just really don't have a ton of space
Sure.
for it. And I guess what I'm saying is if you're super interested in it and you're like super passionate about it, you should know everything that's going on with it, right?
Right.
And if you're like me and you're not super passionate about it, or you really are in a place where you need to avoid that kind of energy,
Mm-hmm.
because there's nothing that I can do about it anyway,
Right.
then if you were looking for permission, I'm giving you permission to not focus on it.
Sure.
You know, because I don't know. Am I making sense?
You are.
Yeah. I kind of want to bury my head in the sand a little bit about it.
That makes sense.
Unless somebody can show me how or why it's going to directly affect me.
Sure.
I think I don't, just like, okay, I'm going to bring it up. Jada Pinkett Smith. God, nobody cares.
Well, somebody does.
Okay. That's probably true. I think it's her. I think
don't
she's
care.
the one who cares because
Right.
she's the one. I have never seen somebody on such a publicity tour.
Sure.
Unbelievable.
I mean, she was on the Today Show like 16 times last week
I'm telling
in
you.
2 days.
Ugh. the jokes that are coming out of it, though, really good. And if you don't know what we're talking about, go, Google. Oh my gosh. Speaking of that, the number of conversations I had in the last week with people who said, I don't know why they didn't just Google it.
Yeah.
I mean, so funny. I was talking to an employer and I said, what are you looking for in an employee? They're looking to maybe expand early next year. I said, what are you looking for in an employee? And he goes, honestly, God, just somebody who can use Google and not ask me the questions.
That's funny. That's good stuff.
And then I was talking to someone who works in retail, and they were saying they had a customer that came in and was asking them all kinds of questions. And she said, I just wanted to say to this person, like, ma'am, do you not have Google?
Right.
Like, you could have Googled all of this. Like, why are we not using our resources? YouTube? Watch a YouTube tutorial?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. It's like we're the smartest consumers ever, and at the same time, the dumbest consumers ever.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I know I'm fully kind of rambling, but these are thoughts that have been rolling around in my head for the last few days, and because I'm the one with the microphone, I'm the one who gets to subject you to these thoughts.
That makes sense. I just Googled the pilot talking to ground control over that thing, and I don't know if it's going to work. I haven't checked this setup to see if it works yet. Let's see if I can pull up that audio. I can't get it louder than that. I wonder what I need to do to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's enough, but I can confirm.
We just got that guy out of the cockpit. And
very calm.
Now we're going to need to land soon. And
isn't that their job, though?
Police waiting.
Their job is to remain calm, right?
Right.
That's one of the things that they are supposed to do.
So fun.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to translate on the air,
right.
But
I don't either, but it was very
crazy to me.
Okay, now it is crazy to me as well, but the thing is, emotional intelligence is very important in your job.
Sure.
Right? So we were just having a conversation before we started recording about the importance of emotional intelligence in the workplace.
And it's critical, right? Because no matter who you are and no matter what you do, if you can't look at problems and see your way through them, it's going to hamper your success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a deal right now going with a borrower who wrote an offer on a house that's over 100 years old. Apparently, there are some repairs that this borrower would like to have done on this over 100-year-old historic home.
That sort of makes sense.
Right. Well, she wanted to get cash from the seller to go do those repairs after they close. Well, that's not really a thing.
Okay.
There are types of loans where you can get cash to renovate your home after closing. That's not what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. There are just some deferred maintenance things that the buyer would like to have done. Well, if I had less emotional intelligence, I could panic if the client wants to have that money at closing.
Right.
Well, that's not allowed. So here's what I recommend you do. And you should talk to your agent. I recommend you negotiate down the price of the house commensurate to the repairs, and then go do the repairs after closing. It's the same money. It's just not money that you'd hope to not have to spend your own money. Well, you're not amortizing that now $7,500 over 30 years. So you're actually getting well more than that.
Right. So let's take a second and talk about emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And how you actually raise your EQ.
Right.
Right. And I would say that therapy is one of the best ways to raise your EQ, your emotional quotient, right?
Okay, yes.
So because listen, you showed me someone who has a hair trigger emotional response offense, right?
Okay, yeah.
You say one little thing and they're offended, just like that.
Yes.
About everything.
Sure.
Right? No matter what.
I think I dated that lady.
No, you married her.
Oh,
what?
Stop it.
Okay. And I'll show you someone who's got unresolved emotional trauma. I think that the childhood trauma, probably.
Sure. Yeah.
The thing to remember, though, and I've been thinking about this recently, is you don't, I see a lot of, because as you know, I love TikTok, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I was talking with someone on the phone earlier today, and she said, my TikTok therapist told me, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually have been thinking about this a lot, because a lot of people talk about my healing journey, right? Or as I'm healing from my childhood trauma, or as I'm, once you're healed from your childhood trauma, then blah, 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 blah. And I would suggest there's no such thing as being healed from your childhood trauma. There is, I don't even like the word healing.
Okay.
I prefer, you're gaining more and more skills in order to manage the childhood trauma, or trauma, let's just say,
Sure.
period. We're gaining skills to manage the trauma.
And to maybe, we talked about this a little bit on our hike when we did our wedding hike redo this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how you have neural pathways that are formed through that trauma.
Right.
And it's as hard to reroute those neural pathways as it is to teach Canadian geese to fly north for winter instead of south.
That's exactly right.
Because that's hardwired into them when they're born.
Right.
So it's interesting to me.
Trauma hardwires our brain.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
then you have these well-worn paths, right? That hair trigger response kind of thing.
Right.
So it's a lot of work to create a different pathway.
Sure.
You can, and we do, but that well-worn path is always still there, right?
Yes.
And so it's like the path of least resistance, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of work to create these new paths and these new ways of thinking. And it is a lot of shifting of skill set, and it isn't easy, but it also, I use this example. You had an accident that resulted in surgery on your shoulder when you were, 19?
Yep.
So you have a scar there.
Right.
It's healed. It's repaired, right? For all intents and purposes, it's repaired.
Mm-hmm.
But if you touch it just right, it's still a little tender.
Right. Yeah.
So it
feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still a little off, right? It's not fully like it was before it was injured. And we are the same kind of way.
I gotcha.
So that's why I don't like saying, I went to therapy for X number of years and I did all these things and now I'm healed from my childhood trauma. And I know we may get some backlash on this. That's okay. I'm willing to have a conversation about it.
Sure.
But for me, I just think it's a process of managing that trauma.
Sure.
And even using it to your advantage sometimes.
And learning to see the experience as different than you have always seen it, as something that's horrid that's happened to you. Maybe learning to see it from a different angle. We listened to some lady who did a TED Talk about this about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And she talked about how try to picture yourself present day being the superhero to save you then from the traumatic experience. Mm-hmm. And how would you save you? What would you tell you to get you out of that?
Yep.
And that's like believing that is a perspective changer, right?
It absolutely is. And I wish I could remember right now what the name of that person or that TED Talk was.
Right.
I can't remember what it was, but if I can find it.
And she was a neuroscientist who put together this talk.
Yes.
So she talked about how the pathways work inside your brain.
So that radically changed my life.
Okay.
And my perspective. That particular
tell me more
TED
about that.
Talk. I'm interested. It's interesting you brought it up. Because I just shared this with somebody last week. Putting those eyes on, putting those glasses on to my childhood trauma, seeing myself as the superhero was really a dramatic shift in my thinking.
Okay.
So now way more often think about I got myself from there to here.
Yes, you did.
I was my hero.
Mm-hmm.
I saved myself. And here's what I mean by that. I'm the one who woke up every day and had to function.
Right.
I'm the one who had to put one foot in front of the other.
Right.
Until the next thing, right?
For sure, yeah.
And continue to climb the mountain, if you will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I got through each horrible thing that happened to me, without a lot of help.
Right.
Especially as a kid, as a young person, until I was a grown adult and could seek out my own treatment, right?
Mm-hmm.
My own therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Which I didn't start traditional therapy until I was in my 40s. So that's a whole nother story. But I did other kinds of counseling,
Sure.
faith-based counseling and that kind of thing that were somewhat helpful so that I could function. But that idea that I put on the cape, I put on the mask, that I used my superpowers to get me through that,
Mm-hmm.
to get me all the way to today,
Yeah.
really helped pull me from, I guess, almost out of a victim mentality into the mentality I should have, which is I'm my own damn hero.
Right.
So anything I face, I know I can get through this.
Yeah.
I got myself through all that. If I got myself through all that, I can certainly get through this.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that more people would have that viewpoint or see themselves that way or get help. I consume that kind of information.
Sure.
Almost as a hobby. Right. And so for me, getting, new perspectives is very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But that particular perspective was definitely life-changing to me. And then being able to say to somebody else who's talking about kind of their victimization, well, wait. That happened when you were how old? Oh, I was 9 years old. Yeah, but you're how old now? Well, I'm 28. Well, then you did it. You did it. You win. You got yourself through that.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not still in it.
Right.
Here's the thing I would assume, and I don't know, because I literally have no concept of personal trauma. And you've seen some things that I've talked about in my life that you think through your lens would have been traumatic. But to me, I never felt unsafe. I never, you know what I mean? Like moving dozens of times as a child.
That's an interesting thing about trauma is it's however your brain interprets what happens to you.
Yes.
Is what it is.
That's how some people can go to war and come home and be okay, while someone else in the same company that went through the exact same things could have lifelong scars.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's how we interpret
I do.
The trauma. It's not
and we don't have,
whether or not it happens.
And we don't have any control over how our brain interprets
That's
it.
right.
And that's the craziest part.
That's right. Two people can go through identical things.
Well, I have a perfect, I use this example all the time. I have two brothers. They're both adopted.
Okay.
One of them, his whole life, his perspective has been, I can't believe that I was so lucky that someone wanted me.
Right.
The other brother, his whole life, his perspective is, I can't believe that I'm so unlucky someone didn't want me.
Right.
Exact same situation.
Same. Yep. Same family, same house, same everything.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand brain chemistry at all.
I don't either, but it's fascinating.
It is. It really is.
It is. Now, I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
You can, catching it. This is something I teach in coaching called the 30-second shift. It takes 30 seconds to change it. But the first step is to notice that you're having some kind of reaction, right?
Sure.
Like, or a thought or a whatever, and stopping and noticing that and going, whoa, wait a minute. So what I'm saying is, like, say you're going down this pathway. Like if I get pissed off about something, if I get like instantly, okay, that's not really my nature. And so I have to stop and kind of reel that back in and go, okay, I was headed down this well-worn path. I don't want to go down that path. What's going on? I got to notice something's going on, kind of bring it back and go, no. We don't do that. We do this.
Right.
So shifting, and there's a whole thing to the shifting. I'm not going to walk through it right now, but shifting into that different space of, no, I'm going to make a different choice here.
This is emotional intelligence that we started talking about at the very
Exactly.
beginning of this thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's being able to notice what's happening and shift from what's happening to something else.
Right.
You know,
That's
'cause
hard
I
to
don't,
do.
Oh God,
You
it's
know?
the hardest thing to do.
The whole arguing thing that I did during my first marriage, it was orchestrated kind of, right? It was just part of our dynamic. We bickered from time to time. You and I don't bicker at all. Mm-mm. And it's easy to not bicker with you because you don't have any interest in it. And I really just want to make you happy all the time.
Right.
But if you wanted to go down that road, it would be really easy for me to fall into that path just because it was a well-worn path in my brain. Oh, you want to argue? Let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thankfully, you and I have similar communication styles, and neither one of us have any interest in that. And it's great. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was because you were smart that was the case. I thought it was just nature.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
So cute.
Well, yeah, whatever.
Listen, it's easy for me to, you know, when we talk about me or you talk about you, we're really talking about us as a human species, right? 'Cause
sure.
if I say me, there's 100 people that go, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
right? Easily.
1,000.
Yeah.
7,000 or 8,000 if you look at our listeners.
Sure. So if listen, it's easy, and in the moment it feels good to flare up and get really pissed off about something and fly off the handle and, you know, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not, I guess, worth my energy anymore.
I gotcha.
To do that. I mean, I've got to be really fired up to go off.
Right.
Really fired up. And the things that used to be triggers to me aren't as much of a trigger anymore. You know, I don't know. I think, God, there's so much in life that's so good.
Right.
And so valuable and so important and so juicy, you know? And I want all of that.
Okay.
I don't want to spend my time and my energy and my resources being angry or being annoyed or being like, you know what I'm saying?
Sure. And I can tell you this, life is so much more comfortable when you're not harboring ill will.
Right.
When you're thinking about good stuff and you're actively involved in good stuff, it's so much easier to be happy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't think I'm talking about chasing happiness. I want to be really clear about that because
no.
I tend to be a pretty...
You chase peace. That's what you chase.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Right.
You chase joy.
Well, I am joy. I live joy. I'm joyful.
Yes.
You know, my middle name is actually Joy. I'm David Joy Austin. No, it's not.
I think, though, I'm the same way, but peace. I am peace. I am, you know, I had a client recently tell me that they really appreciated the way that I set very clear boundaries in my life.
Interesting.
And, you know, in fact, they texted me one day last week and had a situation going on and kind of briefly explained the situation in this text and said, can I call you to talk about it? Well, it happened to come at a moment where I had a 30-minute window of time. Mm-hmm. I had been working all day long. I had about 10 hours clocked already.
Right.
And I had this 30-minute window, and then I was going to have to do about 4 more hours of like active engagement in working, right? Mm-hmm. And during that 30 minutes, I just didn't have the capacity for anything.
So you needed a 30-minute break, and that meant not talking about somebody else's drama.
So this is what I said. I texted back and said, just kind of that. I'm right at the tail end of 10 hours of work. I have a 30-minute break before I have to get back to work for about another 4 hours. To be completely honest, I don't have the bandwidth for a conversation right now.
But let's talk next Wednesday at 4.
I did. I said, if this is an emergency, let me know and I'll call you on my way to my next thing. Otherwise, can we circle back to it later? And, some people don't like that. I'm sure some people wouldn't like that. They wouldn't appreciate it. But this is the person who said, I really appreciate how you set really clear boundaries, because I could take the phone call, but I can't ensure my response.
Right.
Because I know I'm like completely flatlined right at this moment.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you know that, why not tell people, like, this is where my energy is sitting right now.
Yeah.
Do you want it or not?
And often
excuse me.
I make appointments. If somebody calls me and they want to talk right now and I'm not available, I say to them, tell you what, I'm not available now, but in 3 hours, I have an opening. Can I call you then?
Right.
No one's ever said to me, no, you dirty son of a bee.
Right. Right.
They always say, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm so sorry to bug you. Sure, 3 hours is great.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And considering your own emotional capacity is important.
Yeah.
That's something I don't ever do. I never have a thought like that. Never.
I do, only because I don't want to respond to somebody out of an empty emotional cup.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I don't have anything. I saw something last night that was really beautiful. That I want to mention.
Was it your reflection?
No, that's kind of related to this. We were at our oldest kid's house, and we were watching football.
Yeah.
And the two grand boys, who are 10 and 8, they're going to be 11 and 9 in January, by the way, which is crazy to me. But anyway, they were wrestling around and horsing around like brothers do.
Yeah.
And I witnessed something that impressed me so much. I actually stopped everyone and commented about it to the room and talked about how much I loved seeing this. And I was so impressed by it. And their mom said, well, it's been a lot of work to get there. Right. So kudos to their parents. Here's what I saw. They're wrestling around, horsing around. And the younger one says to the older one, who's got him like pulling his arm or something. He goes, ow, what did he say? Ow, stop. I don't like that. And the older one immediately stopped and said, oh, I'm sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah.
And it was just that really simple exchange. But the little one being able to express his need.
Right.
The older one respecting the need and the boundary of the younger one. And then they continued happily playing together.
Sure.
In a different way.
Sure.
Right? Was very beautiful. And I think a very rare thing that we see among young people, but also a very rare thing we see among adults.
Sure.
So when I said to that person, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now, but if it's an emergency, I'll call you when I'm on my way in 30 minutes, or we can circle back, was me saying, ow, this hurts. Please stop.
I gotcha.
And when they said to me, yeah, no big deal, we'll get to it next week or whatever, the response was just like saying, respecting my boundary. And so I think as adults, we could use a lot more of that kind of care for one another.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I'm going to bring something heavy to you or something important to you, maybe I need to check in with you and see how you're doing first. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've got something kind of heavy to talk about. Are you in a space where you can do that right now? Or should we do it later? Which you'll always say right now, because you'll be scared that you did something wrong.
Absolutely.
Childhood trauma. But you know what I mean? Like, for me, I might want to do it now. I might not want to.
Yeah.
And I'd appreciate that kind of care. So it takes a lot of energy to treat people well, and including yourself. Treat yourself well.
I think that's a great place to end this thing. Treat yourself well is a beautiful statement to put a pin in it.
Okay.
Put a little cap on it.
Well, if you don't treat yourself well, you're going to end up like that pilot in the jump seat on the Alaska Airlines flight who lost his marbles.
I would way rather be Captain Unflappable.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a little bit of a skirmish in the cockpit, and we're going to make an unscheduled landing. Everything's fine, man. The situation has resolved itself. Thank you.
I mean, that's what it was like.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he made an overhead announcement. I just know him talking to the airport
Control
in
center
Portland.
or whatever, yeah.
Awesome. This guy needs an award.
Cool. He
I don't
could
know.
probably get one.
I don't know what really happened in that thing, but if he lurched for the engine cutoffs, and not only was he subdued and taken out of the cockpit, but the pilot kept his cool, somebody needs a medal. That's all I have to say. We'll see you next week.